Emergency Operations Center, the RDOS EOC. Thank you to our local, regional, and national media for helping get information out to residents and visitors. We certainly appreciate that. The RDOS Emergency Operations Center has just issued an evacuation order. That's for electoral area I and G, and an evacuation alert is imminent for that area as well. That will reset the boundaries. Now you can get all of the information you need on the latest for evacuation alerts and orders on the RDOS Emergency Operations Center website, emergency.rdos.bc.ca. In just a moment, we'll hear from BC Wildfire Service. In the meantime, a couple of quick notes. If there is an evacuation order in place in an area where you are, that means you have to leave immediately. An evacuation alert means you need to prepare now, and that means you need to prepare to possibly leave immediately or on little or no notice, or short notice, I should say. Now, for the safety of first responders and the public, if you are in an area that is under an evacuation order, it's very important that you leave. BC Wildfire Service will be moving into that area once it's on an evacuation order. They'll be laying hoses, they'll have equipment in place. It is a working area, so it is vital that people remain out of those areas for the safety of first responders and, of course, for the public as well. If the status of an evacuation alert or order changes, the agencies, including the RDOS, will get that information out immediately. We've heard some calls, or we've heard from some people in the Keremeos area. They're seeing some candling, some fire at the tops of trees, and some other fire behavior, volatile. We understand that. If there is no alert or order in place in your area, that means that it is the status has not changed, but certainly that information will get out immediately. In the meantime, I do want to go to BC Wildfire Service, and we do have, it looks like, Brian on the line. And Brian, I'll just confirm that is the correct spelling of your name, Brian Sandberg?
That's right.
All right, and we'll just ask you to give us a quick update, if you could please, on the Keremeos Creek wildfire.
Yeah, you bet. Is there anything in particular I can speak to, or just a broader?
Well, I think what most people are wondering is anything to do with the size of this fire, the current estimated size, and the fire behavior, and if there is any other information you can give us that people should keep in mind when they are watching what's going on with this wildfire.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the fire, it has grown in size. I think it grew last Friday to Saturday on the weekend. We did see it pick up again last night. We were seeing a lot of rank 4 behavior, a little bit of rank 5. That's a very vigorous fire. As you said, some sampling, a little bit of organized flames as well. That was when the inversion broke down yesterday, and so even at 7 o'clock at night, in Penticton here, where we're based, you could see a pretty good column of smoke plume on the horizon. We do have an updated size that we are reporting out. It should be to the BC Wildfire dashboard pretty soon, but I can share that number with you now. We're at 2,264 hectares for this fire. And again, we do have that's from a perimeter that was flown by helicopter this morning. Yeah, it would have been this morning. And so, yeah, more to your question, things are, I understand that things are going fairly well today. There might be some gusts of wind. There was even a possibility of a thunderstorm today from the weather report that we were getting. Obviously, that's concerning. It's quite hot, but a few degrees cooler than it has been in recent days. So, yeah, I would say definitely watching the winds this afternoon, being really mindful of the infrastructure and the key values that you probably have already addressed. But again, those key values just being, properties, the transmission lines, obviously the highways and corridors going through that area are really key for us. Yeah, maybe I'll leave it at that. That's kind of a broad overview of the fire. One other thing I would add is that we're really ramping up personnel here. We had 144 fire-related personnel as of this morning, and we're doing really well with resource requesting from Kamloops Fire Center. So we're definitely mobilizing to be as aggressive as we possibly can on this fire.
All right, a couple of housekeeping notes. First of all, let's confirm, if we can, please, for the media watching, your title. So it's Brian Sandberg, spelled as you can see it on the screen. In case you can't, it's B-R-Y-A-N Z-A-N-D-B-E-R-G. Is that correct?
That's right. I typed it in myself, so I'm to blame if it's misspelled.
And your title, please, Brian.
Yeah, information officer.
Oh, you are information officer. Okay, thank you so much. I want to clarify too, earlier, I just found this out, that the structure that was destroyed by the wildfire, the Keremeos Creek wildfire, we had heard that it was a non-residential structure. It's now been confirmed that was a residential structure. It was a small cabin. It was occupied. No injuries or issues that way, but it was a residential structure. Again, it's a small cabin that was occupied, not at the time that we know of, but anyway, that is the building that was lost to the fire. No other word, Brian, on any other structures impacted by this wildfire?
Yeah, thanks for that update. I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, that would be the only information I have on structure. I've heard of nothing.
Okay.
Nothing new.
Well, we will be opening the floor to the media in just a moment. Before we get there, I wanted to just take a moment to invite the Electoral Area I Director, Sabrina Monteith. She's with us. The Director for Area G, Tim Roberts, is not available. He's been working very closely with a lot of residents, providing information to them. There, people living especially in the Keremeos area, rural Keremeos, are watching this fire and are concerned, of course, but we'll ask Director Monteith to join us just to say a few words.
Thank you for the invitation. I just want to share the great appreciation everyone has for the great work that's happening. There's a lot of great people out there doing amazing things to make sure that everyone is safe. The communication has been very nice to have to make sure that we're having accurate information. I do appreciate everything that's happening. And I just want to share that, you know, we're not new to wildfires. This is something that we go through. So I think that knowing that and knowing that we have the right people in the right place, I think that we're in the right track. So I appreciate that.
Great. Thank you very much, Director Monteith. In just a few moments, we will have, hopefully we'll be getting some updated evacuation alert and order numbers for you. The numbers that we had previously were prior to this most recent evacuation order that just went out at 2 o'clock this afternoon. The numbers were 248 under evacuation order, 110 under evacuation alert. Those numbers have changed with the latest release, and then an evacuation alert is planned as well. So we'll try to get those numbers out to you before we finish up here at approximately 2:30. In addition, a couple of very quick reminders. If you are in a situation where you're on evacuation order, it's important that if you do have insurance, you check with your provider. That's really, really important because if you have insurance, you certainly want to be in touch with your provider. Just checking my messages here. Okay, this is the latest information now. If you could stand by for just a second, Brian. Under evacuation order right now, total properties within electoral areas I and G, most of these are in electoral area I, 324. Again, that's 324 properties under evacuation order due to the Keremeos Creek wildfire. Properties under alert right now, 73. That's the latest information we have from the Emergency Operations Center. I'll mention that again in case you missed it. 324 properties under evacuation order, and that's as of whatever it is right now. We'll call it 2:10 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 73 properties under alert. There is a reception center set up at Princess Margaret High School in Penticton. That's at 120 Green Avenue. When you go there, it will be open. It's scheduled to stay open till 5 p.m. on August 1st. Due to a shortage of commercial and hotel accommodation, it's ideal if you can arrange to stay with family or friends. Take your pets with you if you can. And group lodging has been arranged as well for those who may not be able to find accommodations. And if you do need transportation, please call 250-490-4231. Again, if you need if you need transportation to get out of an area under evacuation order, 250-490-4231. Let's move on now back to Brian. Brian is an information officer, Brian Zandberg, with BC Wildfire Service. We keep hearing the terms about this wildfire as volatile. It's pretty aggressive fire behavior. What can you tell us about that part of this wildfire and why we're seeing those conditions from what you understand?
Yeah, I guess it's, we've been in a period of obviously a late start to the fire season this year, but there's been significant, we call it curing, drying of forest fuels for some time now. And we've actually been quite fortunate in the sense that we've had an inversion working to our advantage the last few days. And that's sort of keeping things relatively quiet until the late afternoon when we are seeing, some winds picking up and that inversion breaking down and some real activity in some of these harder to reach areas of the fire. That's what we saw yesterday. I think it's probably as simple as that. It's just like, very, very good fuels in very dry conditions with low humidities. That said, the forecast is looking somewhat favorable for this week. And I've been even hearing about a little bit of a precipitation, perhaps into Thursday. So that could definitely play to our favor there.
We're going to go to calls now from the media if we have any. I'm going to have to check with Danny Francisco. He's the Information Services Manager with the RDOS. And Danny, as we do that, I'll remind you, if you don't mind, if you're able to bring up the regional district map on the Emergency Operations Center website, emergency.rdos.bc.ca. There is a live map on there right now that shows all the current evacuation orders and alerts. And that's a handy map to have. You can click on there to get more information. And we'll see if we have any questions from the media. Are you seeing any questions right now, Danny?
Yeah, I've got 2 in the chat.
Okay, so we've got 2 in the chat. I don't have access to the chat here, so I'll have to ask you to help me out with that. I'm not logged in on this computer. I'm seeing it on a big screen across the room there. So we're going to go to our media questions here in just a moment. And also Danny's bringing up that map so you can see it. And again, if you just joined us, my name is Eric Thompson. I'm an information officer with the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen, the Emergency Operations Center, EOC, and we are recording this video on August 1st of 2022 at 2 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And just looking for
Our first question is from Carly with Info News. Can you provide an update on where the fire is spreading?
Okay, we're looking for, Brian, a comment on where the wildfire is spreading. That comes from Info News. Can you tell us where that fire is spreading?
Yeah, I can tell you in very general terms. From and actually that information, the maps have been updated on the BC Wildfire dashboard, so you can have a look there. That has gone live, I think about 30 minutes to an hour ago. Yeah, that's helpful right there. I think you can see it moving. And again, just want to put a caveat on this. I haven't had a lot of time to do an analysis of the changed footprint, but from what I'm, seeing at a high level here is it seems to have moved somewhat to the west, and then also we're seeing it that movement to the east as well. So sort of a generalized, sort of unorganized growth. Is probably an adequate way of saying it.
I hope that helps answer your question. Follow up? No? Okay, and our next media question, Danny?
From the Canadian Press, can you tell me how many people have been affected by the evacuation order?
Question from the Canadian Press, how many people have been affected by the evacuation order? It's really difficult to give you numbers of people because we have people who own property in the area, people who are renting, visitors, and many, many others. So the total number of homes we can tell you are properties, but actual people, it's very difficult to say. What I'm getting now is, I'm just going to confirm this, but I may have an updated alert number for you. But what I can tell you right now is, as of about 2:15 this afternoon, well, right now, 324 properties are under evacuation order due to the Keremeos Creek wildfire. 73 properties are under evacuation alert, and that's in electoral area I predominantly. Some of these homes are also in electoral area G as far as the latest information that's come out. And you'll find that information on the RDOS website. The map I mentioned is up to date with the latest evacuation alerts and orders. That's emergency.rdos.bc.ca. So I've just received some information. I'm just confirming that it is something we can share with you. And in about 15 minutes, we will be putting out an evacuation alert. This will bring it up to date. And when that happens, at about 2:30 this afternoon, the total number, well, it'll probably be a little after 2:30 because I'll probably be working on that, and I'm actually in this room right now. So it might be a little bit after that. But the number, not to make light of it by any means, 438 properties will be under evacuation alert at that time. So that's at approximately, officially as of 2:30, 438 properties. But right now it is 73 properties under evacuation alert. I hope you can appreciate it's fast moving, this information. It's a volatile fire as well. Let's go back to Brian, and I want to talk a bit more about what keeps coming up over and over again for people. And that is, their property's under evacuation order, but they might not feel threatened. They don't see the fire as close as you might assume an order would make people think they should leave their home. We talked about it earlier. It's important that people leave for many reasons. One of them is it's a work zone and it's not a safe place to be. And there's also the threat of the wildfire, but let's talk about that work zone element.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly BC Wildfire Service really asks that people heed the orders that are put in place by the regional district. It makes things very, very difficult for operational staff to sort of be in these difficult areas when there are people to deal with who are refusing to leave. So I guess I could say it really raises the risk for everybody. It raises the risk for folk who aren't leaving, who are under order. It also raises the risk for our staff and all of our partners. I think it can also increase the risk of operations that are less successful than they could be. So I definitely think it's something that imperils the work that we're trying to do there on the land base.
Email here that are coming from the chat for WebEx. We did hear from Canadian Press, and they were asking how many people have been affected. We mentioned the numbers. Right now, we've got a question from Brennan Phillips with Black Press. He says, can you explain what an inversion is and how that is helpful with the wildfire situation? Yeah, good question. The inversion that we're seeing here, it's really it's a band of air that's pushing the smoke right back down on top of the fire, and so there's less oxygen that's going to the fire, and less activity as a result. Oxygen being one of the key elements of wildfire. So the pattern in the last few days has really been that helpful, beneficial weather pattern of an inversion for the morning, but then it sort of breaks down when temperatures are reaching around 27, 28 degrees, and then we're seeing more active fire behavior. I think that's somewhat the anticipated situation again for today, but yeah, hopefully that. Thank you, Brian. More questions here, and a very important point. Thank you to Dawn Russell with Penticton Indian Band. She's a member of Penticton Indian Band community, and she's reminding us that there are also properties within Lower Similkameen Indian Band and the Penticton Indian Band that are impacted by this wildfire. And for that information, you can go to the local websites for the Lower Similkameen Indian Band and Penticton Indian Band. Chelsea Powery is with Castanet, and she had her hand up, which I wasn't able to see. She wanted to ask a question through audio, and let's go to Chelsea now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, first of all, BC Wildfire, for doing what you're doing. My question is not exactly related to your response to the fire, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer this, but the Canadian Forces snowbirds arrived in town, and also the Skyhawks for an aerial show coming up this week. Are you guys in contact with Peach Fest or any of that stuff that in terms of aerial shows, access to lake, access to airspace? Is that going on currently?
Short answer, yes. We are an incident management team that arrived and took control of fire yesterday at noon. Part of that incident management team includes aviation specialists. Yeah, they're very much in contact with the Penticton Airport and the Aviation Society and some other key partners in the area about airspace and our operations, what we need, and about keeping everything really separate. So yeah, I would definitely say that. I would also say to Chelsea that it's not just BC Wildfire Service working on the fire. We've got a lot of support from a lot of sectors, including Lower Similkameen Indian Band and Okanagan Nation Alliance, Penticton Indian Band as well. We've got local firefighters who are helping us out. We've got some of BCWS structural protection units who are here keeping the homes safe as well. RCMP, yeah, there's just a lot of different partners helping us, sort of roll out the best plans and the best operations here. So I just kind of want to, acknowledge sort of the help and support that we're getting from sort of more of a broad coalition of people here.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chelsea. And that's a very good point, Brian. There are many volunteers involved with this wildfire as well, and that includes the emergency support services volunteers who are helping from the city of Penticton, from around the region. The reception center, as we mentioned, is set up at Princess Margaret, the high school, and a lot of people there working out of that location to help people out. Volunteers always step up during these events. We've got the Emergency Operations Center as well, where I'm based here in Penticton at the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen headquarters. Lots of people in there, and they've been spending some long hours making sure that people are safe and also getting the information that they need. We have another question that came in from Canadian Press, and they're wondering if you can tell us about any of the characteristics of the wildfire, such as, is it burning hotter, creating more lightning strikes, and that type of thing? Any of that information you can provide for us, Brian?
Yeah, maybe just expanding on some of the earlier stuff that I was saying. Yeah, there are obviously plenty of fuels. We are in like desert country here, so there are well-cured fuels for the fire to get into. We do have localized weather conditions such as winds that will sort of push the fire, not in an organized way. You can see that with the new fire footprint kind of expanding outwards in sort of, you know, on all sides in a sense. And so we're really seeing activity in the late afternoon. Again, you know, very visible plume of smoke coming up in Penticton around 7 o'clock last night. As for, yeah, and maybe more to your point, just the type of fire behavior that we're seeing, we have a ranking system for it that goes from 1 to 6. So yesterday afternoon around, you know, later afternoon to into the evening, we were seeing rank 4 behavior. And so that's a very vigorous surface fire, but it's also, you know, trees candling. And it's also somewhat organized fire behavior where, you know, the winds will be pushing and sort of really pushing outward on a specific front. Overall, though, it is not a very organized fire, so we can't just sort of point and say, oh yeah, it's traveling this way or that way. And again, I think I would just sort of underline that that just makes it more important to really watch the regional district's website and really pay attention to, you know, sort of the key sources of information. And I'll just list those off quickly. It's going to be regional district's website for any evacuation alerts or orders. We've got a BC Wildfire Service. We've got a Wildfires of Note page dedicated to this fire. We're updating that throughout the day. Watch that. Another really key source of information will be Drive BC, just around, you know, the Crow's Nest, Highway 3 and 3A. We're working really closely with Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure as well, just to keep the information really up to date, so people are, you know, all the residents and people are making, you know, good decisions based on very solid information.
About as far as the number of properties under evacuation order, that's currently at 324. And in just a few minutes, the official number for properties under evacuation alert will be 438. So that evacuation alert is being prepared now and will be made public shortly. So anyone who is living in the area who's been impacted by that wildfire, the evacuation alert numbers will change. And these situations change very quickly, Brian. When we talk about an evacuation order and what that means to the affected properties, for example, Apex Village, people might be wondering, is there a concern that the fire is going to move through the village, or is it more of a concern that you need people out of there to have the fire crews in there to protect it and prevent that from happening?
Yeah, I would say very broadly, you know, lines are drawn on maps, you know, in terms of where and when it's safe for people to remain and when it comes time for people to leave an area. And again, I think from the incident command point of view, we reached a point where, you know, that evacuation order needed to be recommended to the regional district, and that's what happened. It's just, it becomes unsafe for people to remain there. You know, operationally, again, we need people out of an area so that we can do the work that we do there as well. Yeah, I think one thing that I haven't really spoken about too much is just the structural protection crews and units. They're partnering with local fire departments. We're getting them into those, well, we have them in those areas where there are homes, where there are structures, obviously mobilizing at Apex Mountain today and working really closely with the resort itself. They've got some good infrastructure. So, and I understand that in some of these areas, we've got crews, you know, 24/7. So they're overnighting in areas where there are structures and just doing everything that they can to make sure that people's homes are safe.
I should mention RCMP and search and rescue as well, doing a great job getting the message out to people when there are evacuation orders, but also the RCMP have been, and local security companies as well, making sure that those properties are safe. We have time for a couple more questions. We'll get to those in just a moment. We did have an inquiry here from the Canadian Press wondering about the Keremeos Creek wildfire size. We did hear, it hasn't, I don't believe it's on the website yet, but we did hear from Brian that that total size is 2,264 hectares, 2,264 hectares, and that is will be updated shortly. We'll go to the, I believe we have an audio question. Is that right, Danny? We'll go to that question now. Go ahead, please. Hello, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Go ahead, please. All right. Is that Brennan? Nope. If you're able to hear me, if you go ahead, if you called in and you're on the phone line. Nope, gone. In the meantime, I'll tell you that we have another question rather from Brennan. How close is the fire to Highway 3A at this time? And is a highway closure expected in the coming hours or days? Is that something you can comment on, Brian?
For the actual distance in kilometers, that I can't tell you. I think the thing I could say, watch the wildfire dashboard. That shape, so the shape file, the GIS file, that's updated in the website. You can see what the current footprint is of the fire and how close it is to the highway. We've been just been really busy, kind of inundated with a lot of media calls today, so I haven't had a chance to actually look at proximity. As for the part of your question around road closures, there's nothing in the offing right now for road closures. Oh, thank you for pulling that up. That's helpful. I mean, we can see that it's, yeah, it's closer than what it was on Saturday. So as for road closures, there's no road closure anticipated right now. That said, again, it's not a very predictable fire. It is an out of control wildfire. We are definitely in close contact with Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure around road closures. And it's same with our First Nations partners too. We're working quite closely with them on the road closures that we need to put in place to protect everybody. Yeah, I think I'd probably answer it that way.
Thank you, Brian. We've got about 2 minutes left. Chelsea from Castanet News is online with one more question. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to clarify I've seen a lot of chatter on social media about accessibility to Apex. So no one is allowed up to Apex right now to check on their property, check on that kind of thing. You should just be gone and out. What's if you can just clarify what is going on in terms of the evacuation and what people can do to go back up or not.
Do you want to comment on that?
I'm not certain of the answer to that question. I'd have to follow up with you afterwards. Eric, is that something you'd like to respond to, or?
Well, from what I understand, basically, if anyone is at Apex and they've left because of the evacuation order, you certainly can't return. I know there were some people who were trying to get back into the area, and at this time of day, it's unlikely that that would be possible because the idea with an evacuation order is to get people out, get them safe. So to have people heading back up there is challenging. So you will likely, when you get to a checkpoint, check with them. If they're okay with you heading in, they know that you're a property owner, you're able to prove that, they may let you up, but I cannot confirm that. And at this point, as I say, it's a bit late for that. The idea is to get people out of there and make sure that people are safe. So with that, we'll wrap it up, but we'll remind you, are we still live, Danny? Okay, I just want to remind you that you'll get all the latest information on the fire, the wildfire, the Keremeos Creek wildfire from BCWildfire.ca. That website is updated as soon as new information comes in. BC Wildfire is working very closely with a number of agencies, including the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen Emergency Operations Center, the RDOS EOC, and you'll find information about evacuation alerts and orders at emergency.rdos.bc.ca. Our Voyant alert system has been working to get information out. So we certainly have already sent out some information that way. We'll be sending out more. Information's fast flowing. It's a volatile fire. Please keep your wits about you. Make sure you're following those different sources. If you're seeing something on social media and you're not sure if it's true, the best thing you can do is to contact the local authorities, including the RDOS. The Emergency Operations Center address or phone number rather is 490. That's 250-490-4225. 490-4225. You certainly don't want to assume anything. So if you can call that number, we'll try to help you out. Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you to everyone who joined us as well and for watching. And we'll send out more information on when the next update is. We aren't necessarily hosting updates every day, but if there's new information and something to share, we certainly will. But anything else that is needed to be shared will be on the social media platforms and on the websites. Thank you very much, and safe week to all of you. Thank you.